Welcome to One World Countless Story podcast with me, Selena Novello. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Now I have to address this right off the bat. My hat. My beautiful hat. I love it so much. Okay, so yes, it is snowing outside. Okay, yes. Is it fall anymore? No, not really. Should these decorations start coming down? Yes, because it's almost Christmas time and I'm so excited. But it is my birthday very soon and I'm waiting till after my birthday and then I'm going to be decorating for Christmas. But I saw this hat at Chapters. It was so, look how cute it is. I'm just obsessed. And so I had to record just one YouTube video with my new hat, and it was on sale, guys. It was a steal of a deal. You can't say no to a good deal. So I wanted to do one video with my hat on, so that's that. But today I am sharing another podcast episode from One World Countless Story with me, Selena Novello, and I am so excited. So in this interview, I interview Lisa Elle, and I actually met her online and have only met her in person once when we were standing outside to vote because we live in the same area, district, whatever you want to call it. So that was really funny. But I heard her on another podcast and was like, oh my gosh, I have to have her on mine. She sounds like a light, and she gave so many golden nuggets, and I just loved it. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe or go subscribe to the podcast as well if you want to get those weekly. I am going to start getting better at posting the video right after the actual podcast launches, but we're getting there. We're trying, we're thriving. But in Lisa Elle's conversation today, we talked a lot about money. We talked about her life. We talked about the expectations that are quietly put on us and that we think we need to check off, like getting the house or getting married, having the kids, getting the houses, getting the cars. And then when that happens, it's like, what's next? We talked about that. We talked about leading with love. We talked about work-life balance. We talked about so many great things. So I can't wait for you all to hear her and just feel her joy and light and motivation that she brings to everything. So without further ado, Lisa Elle, everyone. Question from you.
Okay, well, I am Lisa Elle. How did I come to be that way? Do you want to know?
I do.
So I'll be honest, the first secret is that Lisa Elle is not actually my legal name. It's a name I adopted in 2012, actually on Facebook. My sister, my baby sister, was in the film industry, and she's a director now, and she does director of movies like for Hallmark and different movies that you might see. And she needed a stage name back when she was 20 and getting started in the film industry. And I thought, because our last name was Lowen with an L at the beginning, so the letter L actually came. I said, why don't you just call yourself Paula L? And I said, why don't you just spell it ELLE? And so that's how it kind of came, but it's actually like the letter L, right? So Lisa Elle is actually for Lisa Lowen. And then I got married in 2005, and it was also the letter L. So the whole Lisa Elle thing, and then it was like LLL. So lots of L's. So that's where the name came from. So yeah, that's basically how that got started. I always think that's a fun story. But yeah, so I was are we taking it right back to the very beginning?
Yes, okay. Very beginning.
So I was born in Edmonton, Alberta. And so I was literally the last month of the 70s. I was born in the very last tail end of the 70s. So I'm kind of in a mixed generation. I'm kind of in between, I'm like a sandwich child, when they're like, what are you, a millennial? Are you a Gen X or Y or whatever? But so I'm kind of in that weird stage. And so basically I grew up in Edmonton. I moved to Calgary when I was about 9 years old, and went to high school, and basically, just lived with my family. And then, and I've basically lived in Calgary the rest of my life. 10 years ago, I did move to Cochrane, actually almost 11 years ago now. So I have been out in Cochrane, but I've basically been an Alberta girl my whole life. So That's kind of fun. So I live, like growing up, it was my parents. They're still married. They're actually celebrating their 45th wedding anniversary a
What?
month from now, which is awesome. Yeah. And then I'm the oldest of four siblings. Now, interesting, talking about like life stories and life journeys, is that I am the oldest child of four kids, but I was also born to both my parents are also the firstborn children in their families. My dad's the firstborn of seven kids, and my mom's the firstborn of four kids. So I find birth order so fascinating when it relates to personalities and all these things, right? So being raised by two firstborns and then being part of these huge families, like I have huge, beautiful families with full of like tons of cousins and relatives on both sides.
Mhm.
And a lot of pressure was put on me. Like, let's kind of say it that way. Like, it's kind of the best way to say it. I felt responsible for the family being the firstborn, not only for my siblings, like just growing up, it's like this natural tendency. So if anyone out there is like a firstborn, they may relate to it. I think truly like middle children and babies of the family don't feel the burden the same way firstborns do. So I like throwing that out there because I think it's an interesting combo. I think it's something psychologically really interesting on what makes you be who you are, what makes you so driven, and what makes me be essentially a lot of people. I mean, a lot of us women specifically are people pleasers. And for me, I think a lot of that comes from being a firstborn and just having to take care of everyone and always putting everyone else before me. So that's been a huge part of my journey. And then shifting, honestly, in about 2012, 2013, my journey kind of opened up and I shifted from being a people pleaser into kind of being what I would like, what you may say is more like identifying with my self-worth and like stepping into my self-worth and not putting what everyone else thinks about me ahead of what I think about myself. So that's a fun part. We can get into that in a bit. So I grew up with my family and and then I met my husband who, we're separated, but I met him when I was 19. So I kind of married one of the first boys I dated, essentially. Mm-hmm. And we got married when I was 25. And then at age 27 and age 29, I had my two daughters. So they are now 12 and 13, which is great. They're kind of independent. And there was there's a lot, right? Like so much goes on in life, but having girls, going through that. The other thing, I started my career when I was 20. So when I was 20, I knew I wanted to be a financial advisor because when I was 17, I dated this guy who I adore just to this day. His name is Dan. And I dated Dan and Dan introduced me to his financial advisor when I was like 17, 18, kind of like your age, like 19, right? And I had her as my financial advisor and I wanted to do this as a career specifically because I knew I wanted to have a family. Because I knew I wanted to have, kids one day, and the traditional jobs where you had to take mat leave and stuff just didn't do it for me. Mm-hmm. The other thing was when, going back, I lived in Europe for a year when I was 17, 18. I took my first year of college in Germany. So that was fun. I traveled all of Europe. It was amazing. It was such a great experience at 18. When I was 19 and when I met my husband and stuff, I was working at WestJet. And now keep in mind, WestJet's an amazing company. I loved working for an airline. It was so much fun. What a great experience. But the underlying fact is that I hated having a boss. I learned that, and you probably get this because you've been an entrepreneur, you said, since you were 16. I hated having a boss. I hated having to check in and check out. I even hated that with school when I went to Mount Royal College, right? Because I think, did you go to Mount Royal too?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? So I went to Mount Royal when I was 19, 20, getting my marketing management business degree started. And anyways, it was just so funny because I'm like, I hate this. And I recognized that at 19, like that I never wanted to really be part of the corporate world. So I think a lot of these things form when we're, still pretty young, right? But I knew what life I wanted. I knew I wanted to have children. I knew I wanted to eventually get married. I knew I wanted to be self-employed. I think the biggest thing is time and choosing your time. I think that's just so important, because time's that one resource we can never get back of. Money we can always make more of, you know, but time is, you just have to treat your time so carefully, right?
Yeah.
And so basically, yeah, that's what happened. I ended up becoming a financial advisor at 20. And so I was self-employed from 20 on. And I did take a detour a little bit, and I shouldn't say detour. I've always been a financial advisor, but there came a time in about, I think it was 2011, and I just decided, I made a decision. And it was one of those things I'd never up to that point when I was 30. So up to age 30, I never made $100,000 in a year. And it's not like $100,000. It was this random number, but I mean, it's $100,000. I don't know. I just decided one day, like, I'm going to make $100,000. How am I going to do that? And the easiest, fastest way I knew how to do that was, I'm like, oh, I'm going to like get a job doing some real estate. So I actually did real estate while I was still doing financial advising, of course. Like, I still had my business the whole time, but I went on as commission, still basically kind of self-employed in a way. And I went on as commission, and in 3 years, I ended up selling like $75 million of real estate, and loved it, but then hated it. And then I was like, okay, that's done. So I'm just going to go all in on financial planning. And the funny thing is, like, if you look at the timeline, one of the reasons why I actually stepped into real estate was because I needed space away from my children. Like, okay, so that might sound bad, but I love my daughters. They are lovely. They're independent. They're amazing. But a lot of moms, and if you ever have kids, there's sometimes a lot of shame about women who, you know, maybe aren't called to be kind of the stay-at-home moms. You can still be an amazing mom, and you don't have to be doing all the domestic things, right? Like, nowhere ever did it say a mom has to do the cooking and the laundry. Like, it doesn't say that. That's not like, so you get to truly create your life from whatever place you want to create it, right? And that was so key for me. And I think making money and stepping into the real estate world, and I made a lot of money there, and it was great and it was amazing, but it gave me that confidence. It just gave me that boost of confidence that if I can do this here, I know I can really take this into my financial planning practice, which at that point I was already, I was a CFP when I was 25 years old. So I've been a CFP now for like over 15, 16 years now. So, I mean, I've been taking it pretty seriously ever since then, but you know, I kind of was at that point in time, I was doing 2 kids, 2 jobs. Like, I was just work. But anyways, it was amazing just to be able to allow yourself to step into something that liberates you to have the confidence you need to take the next step, right? So anyone who has like a side hustle, I throw this out there. A lot of people might have a day job and then have a side hustle. So important. Do what you need to do sometimes to make the money you need to make, because it will help you with confidence too, right? So I think that's key. So anyways, yeah, I did that for a bit. And then in 2015, I went to New York City, and I had been working online, like getting my online business, getting marketing, getting everything organized since 2014. And it was June 21st, 2015, I went to New York City in Midtown Manhattan, and I launched Elements Financial Group. So my company now is 6 years old. It's essentially the same thing I've been doing for 20 years, but I actually took it seriously. And one of the gifts of that time, and if like, again, talk about the time frame, was my daughters had finally made it into grade 1 and grade 2 in school. I mean, now they're going into grade 8 and grade 9, but back then they made it into all day schooling, which is so important. Like, you know, because it is hard, and everyone knows, like, when you have kids, and I know you're not there yet, but I'm like, when you have kids, it's very, you know, it's hard. Like kids are a lot of work, and they're exhausting. They're a great reward, but it's just, it takes a lot out of you when they're young. So when they went to full-time school, I thought, this is great. I can finally put some effort in, you know, while the kids are at school all day, into my business. So that's basically how that happened. And I started my business. I started my blog. I've been doing my blog since that day in June 2015. And that means I'm at, I think, 300 and almost 30 weeks of blogging every week consistently. And in that time too, I also had my book that I wrote, and I published my first book in 2016, October 2016. And that one is called Strut: How to Kick Financial Assets. And that is a financial planning book for women in Canadian terms. But it's a great book. Like, it's got lots of great life advice as well for young women of all ages, actually. It's a really fun read because I relate shoes to financial concepts. So that's really fun. So it's like walking through the shoe closet, and you can pick and choose what chapters you want to read in the book. And they all have, like, just lots of fun little conversations about money. So yeah, that happened. And then, like, here I am today, 6 years into my company. I've got a team. In total, there are 8 of us on my team. We do all things financial planning. I do a lot of money coaching, money programs, a lot of financial education. I do a lot of speaking to corporations. I spoke to Microsoft a few weeks ago. So, like, I'm doing a lot of speaking. I'm getting interviewed a lot by publications. I get asked to be a guest speaker for like the Toronto Star and a lot of different publications across Canada for financial planning. So it is really an honor. To be fair, it's taken 20 years to get here. So it's not like any of this success I'm slowly experiencing has happened overnight. It's taken, how they say it takes like that 10,000 hours to kind of get to where you want to go. But the biggest thing there is I'm like, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And to be honest, yeah, you put in so much time and energy. And a lot of times you don't see anything back for a very long time, but you got to keep planting those seeds. So, yeah.
Wow, that's so awesome. I have so many questions.
Hey,
like, I love it. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go way back. So you did your first year of university in Germany and you traveled to Europe. Can you
did.
More about that? Like, what made you decide to do that? What did you do when you were there? Like, I want to hear all about that.
Oh my gosh, the best year of my life, no doubt. What made me want to do that was just one of those silly things planted in high school. Like, people would always joke, let's go backpack across Europe. And I'm like, yeah, why don't I? I'm one of those people who hears an idea and I kind of just act on it. Like, if it's something that inspires me, I'm like, let's do it. And I mean, I think today, which kind of is not ideal, but maybe today, obviously the landscape has changed a lot with travel at the moment. Hopefully that all goes back. But back then it was amazing. We could buy an unlimited train pass, like, the Eurorail or whatever they were called, across Europe. And you could travel on any train to any country and go wherever you want. And me and my girlfriend, I think we made it to like 17 or 18 different countries. And with our backpacks, and I mean, it was great. I mean, stories upon stories, but yeah, anyways, it was so worth it. I will definitely encourage my daughters to do it. I know nowadays, at least they have cell phones, and I don't know if it's like, it seems scary now as a parent. Now I look as a parent to my kids and think, oh no, I'll never let my daughters do that. That was crazy. But when I was there, it was very safe and, it wasn't that sketchy back then. So who knows? I don't know, but it was so good. Selena, if you ever get the opportunity to backpack or just travel or meet human beings from different cultures, and it's such a lovely experience and it opens your eyes to the whole world. It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I want to go so bad. That's why I asked. And COVID happened and that was the year I graduated. So my original plan was like, I'm going to travel. And then it was like, oh, just kidding. You can't do that right now. So that was put on hold. But did you, I heard you say your girlfriend, so you didn't travel alone then, you went with someone?
I went with my one girlfriend. Yes. So that was good. And there was a couple times we were a group of, I think, 5 of us, but mostly it was just me and my girlfriend. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So if you were to give anyone advice coming out of high school, what would that be?
Well, yeah, I would say I don't like taking a gap year, because for most people, okay, can I be honest? Most of my friends took a gap year and never went back. So there's that. But it also depends on your personality. I mean, I wouldn't encourage my kids to take a gap year. My idea of a gap year was going to Germany for a year, was living in Germany. That was my gap year, yet I still did a year of college there. So, I mean, you can still have your cake and eat it too, right? You can kind of do all the things. And I mean, that's a great lesson. You can have your cake and eat it too. Don't ever think that, you aren't worthy of getting all the things you want. So there you go.
Awesome. That's great. I love that. Okay, so that's some great advice. Let's go into the next question. Your relationship right after just right, it's very young, a young relationship. I would love to hear more about that as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you mean like, okay, so my husband I met at a bar when I was 19, technically speaking. I mean, we were introduced through a friend that I worked with at WestJet. But yeah, we dated for essentially 5 years and got married in 2005. So that was good. Looking back now at my whole life, I will say people do change and grow. And if you ever do have a relationship, it's so important to grow with that person. Um, I think that's a big thing. Or if people sometimes grow apart or grow in different ways, or one person's growing and the other's kind of staying the same. Like, I think that's a huge thing, is just to find, like, if you can find someone who wants to grow with you, I think that's a beautiful thing. My husband, like, he's an amazing man. He's like the father of my kids. We're separated now, but yeah, he's great. And I'm so grateful. Like, if you truly like, and I've set out since the very beginning, I will tell you honestly, I have set out to not live with any regrets. And I truly do not live with any regrets. I think everything in your past shapes you for who you are today. Everything is happening for your highest good. I honestly believe that to my core. Whatever you think bad is happening to you, and I know you've had your struggles, right, with like learning and everything. And I'm like, all these things are just such beautiful openings into stepping into who we're truly meant to be. So yeah, like it was fun. It was fun. I'm so glad I got married. I'm so glad I had children at the ages I had my children at. So yeah, it's such a fun thing. And nothing I love more in life than seeing other people in love. Like, I'm a romantic suck. I am a crazy romantic person. I love watching cheesy rom-coms. My favorite movies are in the likes of like Leap Year or Bridget Jones's Diary. Like, I like all the classic, Julia Roberts, anything with oh my goodness, like Meg Ryan and like Tom Hanks. Like, I am like the suck for romantic comedies to the nth degree. And I'm so inspired, by the way, by people who are in love, and especially people who can grow in love over the years. I think it's just beautiful. So yeah, I bet are you a big romantic suck too?
I am. Oh yeah. So yeah, I really am. I've never been in a relationship, but I love. That's the best way to say it.
Yes, I love too. And
yeah.
I think those people are special people. You know what? Because I think there's a lot of women out there, I'll say, that maybe don't love, but the girls who can just be in love, like, it's great. I think there's no better feeling on the planet than just being in love. Like, and it doesn't necessarily maybe need to be bad, just being in love with life, being in love with, just the magic that can happen in your day-to-day life. It's just such a lovely space to be in. I think people who can be in that space just add that extra special something to the world. Yeah. And I can see that in you, by the way. When I was stalking you on your posts, and I'm like, oh, I love her energy. I love her light. So you know what? Like, I acknowledge you for doing that in the world and being light. And I think it's amazing. Like, the work you do as a person who lights up, and love does that for you. Romantic love, all different types of love. But when you light up, you literally light up the world. So no matter how that happens for you, I say go out and get it. Like, go out and make it happen.
Oh, man, I love that. Thank you so much for all those kind words. It really means a lot to me, because I don't really know you that well. And it's nice to hear that from someone, like, I guess more of a stranger. But I agree with you 100%. And I think it's so awesome. And it kind of leads really nicely into my next question for you, which was when you said you were really, really passionate and you wanted to be a financial planner, and you knew that's what you wanted to do, and you were very motivated and going to do anything that you could to get there. Was there, like, what was the passion behind it? What was the reason behind that?
Oh, Well, I think initially it was like, oh, I can be self-employed and control my time. So that was the first reason that I became self-employed when I was 20, because I didn't want a boss. So that was my immature reason. Later on, as time has progressed, it's been a driving passion. In 2010, and I write this in my book too, in 2010, I remember sitting on the couch. I had, a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, I think at the time. And I was just in a real funk at that time in my life. Like I was depressed. It was Christmas break. I think I sat on the couch for 2 weeks straight. I was just, watching little kids play all day, like my daughters. I love it, but it was so, I was just like, there's got to be more to life than this. And I don't know what was going on in my head at the time, honestly, but maybe a bit of stress or hormones or something. But I'm like, I need to come up with my bigger mission in life. And because here's the other thing, I'll tell you a secret. I had a checklist. I think it wasn't like a paper checklist, like written on paper, but I think naturally, and I don't know, maybe nowadays the younger generation doesn't have it as much, but I was raised with the secret agenda, the hidden checklist of graduate high school, go to university, go to college, get a degree, get some education, go on a date, find a boyfriend, get married, have babies, buy the house, have the white picket fence, and then, have the holidays and the, car, like all the stuff, right? So that checklist, and I think it still kind of exists. Like, at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's just kind of how a lot of our society has been. But I remember in 2010, it was a very defining moment for me because I just moved into my dream house. So my husband and I at the time bought my dream house when I was 30 years old, and I lived in my freaking dream house. And it was amazing. I had 2 beautiful daughters. We had brand new vehicles in the driveway. We had money in the bank. We had just gone on a 3-week trip to Hawaii. Like, it was like all the things. I had all the things, right? And there was such a longing in my soul that I didn't have what I wanted. And that's kind of always stuck with me. I write about it in my book more, but there's more to life than doing the checklist. And I think what happened was in 2010, I had manifested everything I had worked a decade to manifest: the marriage, the kids, the house, the cars, the business, the whole thing, right? The travel, all of it. And when I got there, it wasn't fulfilling. It was like, okay, I'm done this. Now what? Now what? Because I'm like, I don't necessarily need more money. I don't necessarily need more trips. I don't need, more kids at the time. I didn't need more kids. So, but it's like, what do you do from there, right? So that's when you get to a point a lot of times. And now everyone will go through what I call this the dark night of the soul, is the best way to describe it. I think everyone goes through the dark night of the soul. I think some people will go through it when they're 5 years old. I think some people go through it when they're teenagers. I think some people go through it when they're 80 years old. I think we all have our unique experiences, but there comes a point in everyone's life, and this is my theory, but there's a point usually where you question everything and you break down your whole life to its bare bones and question your existence. And then you start forming your purpose, your mission, your vision for what you want your future to truly be. And that seed started for me in 2010. It carried on through up till today. Like, it's carried on, and I think it'll still carry on. But that had shifted then the rest of my life. And the last 10 years, 11 years have been truly magnificent. My 20s, they were great. I don't need to relive my 20s at all. I'm glad I've grown. And to be honest, as much as I hate aging, because I like to think I'm still 29, but I truly love who I am today. I love where I've been. I love all the mistakes I've made, and I have made a lot of mistakes, but I own them, and I feel I'm in a place now where I can use my voice and I can share my message with the world, and I'm very clear on my message. I think a lot of people, I think you're clear on your message too, and I think you've got a special light with that. I'll just say that. It takes one to see one, I think, a lot of the times, but a lot of people, I think, go through life and they don't have clarity on exactly what their calling is, exactly what their message is to share with the world. And I'm just blessed that I started that discovery path and went through that kind of dark night of the soul kind of thing that I say, but when I was in about 2010, and shifted through that. And it's been a shift. It didn't happen overnight. It takes a while, a lot of times, to really go through these seasons of our lives, but they all keep adding, to our life, and we keep building on those experiences and getting more tools for the toolbox and learning how to like process life and think through things. And ultimately, really, I think at the end of the day, just be connected to source and be able to like share your light with the world. That's like, I think, my ultimate goal. I'm just choosing to do it through money and through financial stuff. So regardless what you are in, whether you're in the health industry or fitness industry or like, financial stuff or, whatever, if you're a calligrapher or if you do knitting or needlepoint, like whatever it is you do, or sports or whatever, find the thing that lights you up that you can share with the world. It could be like just being in love, like we talked about before. That thing will you can share that with the world, and it will inspire others to be better people, for sure.
That was a fantastic answer. Like, I'm just blown away. I honestly, I'm speechless because I think everything you said was so amazing and like so true. I believe it all as well. And I feel so inspired by you. You're just so positive and uplifting, and I just love it so much. I'm very curious to know what your experience was with money before you were a financial planner and started making all that money.
Oh, this is good. Okay, so how this kind of happened, I come by financial stuff honestly because my dad, well, he got a degree in math. He was big. He worked for a Fortune 500 company. Okay. So he was like high up there, and he would take us into the boardroom on Sunday nights at his office. And he would sit our family down. And this is like when I was in about grade, I forget, I think grade 7, 8, 9, I can't remember exactly when, but he would, and keep in mind, this is a long time ago. We're talking like 25 years ago at least. So we're talking technology isn't like as easy as it is today. Printers in those days, they had the paper with the little dots on the side, and it took like 100 hours to print one piece of paper, like those kind of days. So, but my dad would, and I mean, Excel was like a baby Excel program. It was like basically a calculator on a computer screen, right? But my dad would process our family budget spreadsheets. I still have a copy of one. It's like on legal size paper. It's like 10 pages long. It's crazy. He had every single penny our family of 6 people plus a dog spent. And we would sit there, and he would force all of us out, me being the oldest, my youngest sister probably being in grade 4, who probably had zero clue what the heck was happening. He would make us go into his office on a Sunday night and sit around the boardroom table and review the family budget in a budget meeting. Can you even imagine like being in grade 7 and dragging your kids to have a budget meeting? That's crazy. Although, to be fair, I've always had an obsession with offices and business. And I think it kind of came from always going into the fancy offices and always wanted to be the head of the boardroom, which now I am the head of my own boardroom. But it was one of those things, right? But so I do come by, honestly, my dad kind of like drilled it into us in a bad way, which is great. When I was 18, my dad took me. Again, internet was just starting, you guys. Internet was just a brand new thing. My dad took me to my first online trading course when I was 18. So I started getting into stock trading. And when I was like 19, I had a portfolio of like, oh gosh, like, I mean, again, like probably like $25,000, $30,000. I don't know back then, but I was like 18 and I just started saving, and I invested in 2 mutual funds. They're still around. Well, one of them is still around today. The other one has been amalgamated, but these funds are still around. It's hilarious. And I had a stock portfolio, and I still have that account actually. So I started these habits like when I was 18, basically. So I started saving when I was 18. And every time I worked, I saved probably 20-30% of my paycheck back then when I was going to school. And, just always kept really good savings habits. in later years, I still have amazing saving habits. It's just I have now reinvested into different things like my business, which has taken a lot of my investments. Yeah, so but that happened. So I started with the stock course. I wanted to be a stockbroker. Who hasn't seen like Wall Street and like the movies where you just want to, you just like, I'm going to be honest with you. I just wanted to be a sexy, like in a business suit. Like this was me when I was 18. And by the way, I have photos of me in business suits, like literally, okay, embarrassed. This is actually embarrassing. There is a photo of me in grade six with me in a business suit. I loved business and I wore a cute, sexy business suit when I was 18. And I still have cute, sexy business suits to this day. But I wanted to be that stockbroker in New York. Like this was where I was headed. This was the trajectory. The only thing is when you get into real life and you're, and then I was 20 and then I realized, do you know how much stress stockbrokers have? And by the way, at that point in time, I had just started in 2000 when the .com crash happened and there was Y2K. And it was like, I know you were a baby then, but like basically a big stock market crash. And literally stockbrokers were like literally committing suicide. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that seems like a high stress job. I think I'm going to take this from a different route. And I kind of went into holistic financial planning, which means I'm still doing investments. I still manage portfolios, but I look at the whole picture of the client's money situation. So anyways, that is how I got into that. That is how I knew. And so that is definitely how I knew I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And plus that boyfriend I was telling you about, he introduced me to his financial advisor and she became my first financial planner. And even financial planners like myself are happy to take on clients who are 18. I love that. Having been an 18-year-old woman or guys too, but, starting at saving at 18 when you're basically legal enough to set up your own like TFSA and accounts. I love helping 18-year-olds. Like it's, I don't get paid much on it, but I do it out of the goodness of my heart. I really love helping them get set up for success for their future. So if you do ever like know people, like just know that not all financial planners will turn you down. And you definitely want to find like an independent, holistic financial planner, someone who can look at your whole life. That means they're looking at your goals. They're looking at, and what I do is I take everyone's goals and I relate it back to their financial plan. So your goals drive your financial plan. It's not like me saying, oh, you should do this. You should invest in Apple. You should invest in Microsoft. Like we don't say those things because it has to start with your goals first. Going back to what I was saying before about even clarity in your business and what you want to do in your life, you have to have clarity about what you want for you to start working toward going to get it in your life, right? So, and I think that is, and that is where most people fall short. I sit with 65-year-olds. I have another one coming up here this weekend, and it's literally about what are your goals? Because people, a lot of time we work. We get so busy with day-to-day life that we don't actually sometimes sit back and pause and focus on where is this going? What am I building? And I think if you can make that a practice in your life right now, like at young 18, 19, like the young people, that at least once a month, at minimum once a month, if not every week, kind of refocus and have that quiet time where you can say, okay, will this help me ultimately get to where I want to go? Or does this matter? Like there are things in your life you're going to do and they're not going to matter in 100 years from now. And I use that as a good guiding question, like, will this matter in 100 years from now? Meaning when I'm gone, is this part of the legacy that I want to build? So that's kind of like a guiding question that I use a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've already mentioned a little bit about manifestation a few times. So I'd love to hear your opinion on how to manifest the life that you want.
Okay. Do you want to hear my best manifesting story ever?
Yes, I do.
Okay. In 2015, I wrote up on, I had a big whiteboard in my office, a huge whiteboard. And I wrote 3 dreams. And I threw one out there that I knew was always going to happen, but I just didn't know when, and I didn't know how. So I threw up on the whiteboard, and this is ridiculous. I said, I want to fly in a private jet. Okay. And I'm like, at this point in time, I didn't know anyone with a private jet personally. Like it's not like I had friends. I could be like, hey, let's go for a ride in your private jet. No, I did not have that friend in my life at the time. Right. And so I kind of threw it up on my board January 1st. I have photos of this and I've actually printed them off. I sometimes do them when I'm doing like some of my talks for people.
Yeah.
So threw it up there. June comes along. I flew to Kelowna. My dad was having a retirement party from his Fortune 500 company that he worked for that I was telling you about. So we had this beautiful retirement party. They threw a beautiful party for him at Mission Hill Winery in Kelowna. And my parents had a party at their house, and it was a very intimate retirement party, by the way. It was maybe 30 people. And the two CEOs of this Fortune 500 company who like literally ran the company, the CEO and I forget the CFO or something. Anyways, these two bigwigs and the vice president, they all came to this party. So it was a very private party. And the only people that were allowed there was my dad and his 4 children. So we weren't even allowed spouses. We weren't even allowed grandkids. It was a very because the company was paying for it. Anyways, so they have this like pre-appetizer, party at my parents' house. So we're sitting there having wine and appies and stuff. And I start chatting up the vice president of this Fortune 500 company. And I had flown in on WestJet to Kelowna for the party. And I was flying back the next morning to get back to work on WestJet. So my regular commercial flight. And I just started chatting up the guys, and I just started chatting about their jet. I'm like, oh, so I heard you took, the company private jet. So the company has one private jet, and it's this Dassault Falcon 2000. It is the private jet you've ever seen. Okay. And I kind of just chatted and said, oh yeah, so where are you guys heading next? And he's like, Calgary in the morning. I'm like, oh, I'm going to Calgary in the morning on WestJet. He's like, well, why don't you just catch a ride? And I'm like, okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? Anyways, we booked it up. He's like, text me your name. We'll throw you on the manifest. My dad's like, okay, so first of all, I kind of ticked off a lot of people because a lot of people in the company who worked at the company had been wanting to go on the jet. Again, no one goes, I don't know how to explain this, but no one goes on the jet. There is a very specific list of employees that go on this jet.
Okay.
Random strangers do not go on the jet, to be very clear here. Okay. So I actually said, oh, me and my sister. So I even got my sister on the jet. So we ended up at 6 a.m. He's like wheels up at 7:30 and I flew private and it was amazing. It was a short flight, obviously, but from Kelowna to Calgary, but the best experience. But the craziest part of the whole story is on my vision board. And if you ever do vision boards or manifesting or things that you're just dreaming of, I went on Google, and I do this for vision boards because when they're always like cut out magazines. Well, magazines, I can never find the photos I want. Yeah. So what I do is I Google the images. Same. Okay, good. So I Google the image and I said woman on private jet, and a photo showed up, and I just have my printer here, and I just print off the photos. And this photo, and I still have it. I have the photo of this woman, the photo that was on my actual vision board of this woman sitting on this private jet, looking out the window. And I kid you not, I sat on the exact jet in the exact seat. I was the woman, and I have the photo of me sitting, looking out the window. And that photo that I printed off of Google was from I think a few years previous even. It was just on a vision board hanging in my hallway for a few years, literally before. And then I threw it up on my whiteboard on January just for it's just for fun. Okay, universe, let's test you out here. Let's just throw this out and see if you can make the private jet happen. And the trick there though with manifesting is there's a role you have to play in it. And I asked for what I wanted. I had enough guts and balls to ask the vice president of this company to fly on their private jet. And so the universe will give you these opportunities. I think you have to have enough courage to seize them. Because trust me, I would have been devastated if he said no. I would have been devastated. But that is the funnest story of manifesting I've ever had by far. But there's a lot of secrets in there. It's not really truly believing that you already have what you're going to have. I knew that even if I wasn't going to get a private jet that year, I knew in my lifetime, without a shadow of a doubt, I would be flying around on a private jet. I just knew that. So there's things it's you lock it in, you confirm it, you know it. But then at the same time, so this is where it's such a contradiction to our brains. It's you lock it in, you know it, you 100% know what you're going for, no matter what it is you're going for. but then you release it. So that's where it's so contradictory, because you release the goal, you release it out, you surrender it. You have to make space for the universe to rearrange itself to allow you to receive the gifts it wants to bestow upon you. So that's what happened. And let me tell you, that was fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that sounds so amazing. That's wild. Like, I think a big part of it though is too, you put yourself out there and you were mingling and making connections. So I think like that's just so awesome. And I love that as a story. So if there's someone who is wanting to get started and start to manifest and do those things, what would you recommend for them to do?
Okay. I think like a lot of the things I use as practices, they all play a part. There's so many different things like meditations and mantras and rewriting. One of the things that I personally do is I will write out in my journal every day a statement many times until it's like completely sunk into my subconscious, essentially. How do you know it's sunk into your subconscious? You don't. The only way you really know is when it just flows out of you and comes out of you. So for example, like the mantra, money is flowing easily to me. Money flows easily to me. That means money is not hard to make, right? That's a choice. You can say money's hard to make and you will manifest that money is hard to make in your life. That means you won't make money easily. But if you say I make money easily, then it will start flowing easily to you. Or money, or you can say all my bills are paid before or like on time, right? Like whatever it is you're struggling with in your financial life, is create the mantra of the thing, and just keep repeating it in your head, repeating it on paper, repetition, like go to sleep with it, think about it right before you go to bed, meditate on it before you go to bed, let it soak in at night while you're sleeping, like marinate a little bit, and then repeat it in the morning. But also it may take a long time to manifest, and that's okay. It's like the constant drip, drip, drip. You don't know when it's going to happen. You actually don't know when anything's going to happen, right? It's just one day you wake up and you realize, wow, all these things I've worked so hard for over the years have now just fully come to fruition. And that's a beautiful moment, especially if you have gratitude thrown in there big time for whatever it is you're trying to manifest. And truly, truly do not squeeze it to death. Do not squeeze your dreams to death, meaning do not expect them, have no expectations. Like I was saying, the surrender, the release, hold them with hands open so that it can come and go. Like someone, if the universe wants to give you a gift and put a ball in your hand so you can grab onto it, but the universe can't put a ball in your hand if you have a closed fist, right? So you need to have your hands open to receive, and you have to ask for it. Like ask for what you want. Ask the universe to bless you with the universe, God wants to bless you with what you desire, your heart's desires. I truly, truly believe that whatever it is you desire in your life, whether it's romance, whether it's love, whether it's a business, whether it's making $1 million a year, whatever it is in your life that you truly want, I believe those desires were placed there divinely. They're divinely placed there. That means your job is to follow those desires, because everyone has different desires. And realizing that your desires are special and unique to you and then following them is such a beautiful thing. So that's my advice there. Is that kind of something you
Absolutely. I love the hand thing, that coming in and out, the closing the fist, squeezing the dreams. I love that. That was a great analogy.
You'll choke it to death.
Yeah, and I think that's like such an important message as well, because I feel like we don't hear that side of manifestation a lot of the time, or asking for things. Sometimes we may doubt our dreams as well. So I'm wondering if you have anything on that as well.
Doubting dreams. I've doubted myself every step of the way. I think everyone has serious doubts. We have serious fears. And I think the trick, and I think, who says this best, but basically it's like fear is riding with you and you still got to do the thing. Yeah. You got to, go out, show up for your dreams, do the thing, even if you fall flat on your face. I was nervous about doing my Microsoft talk a few weeks ago to the company. And because it was a corporate presentation. And usually I'm happy to speak like this with you, where I'm off the cuff and I can speak about all the things that I want to speak about.
Yeah.
But when I was doing a corporate presentation, it was very much more, following a specific set of, like following the slide deck, right? The presentation, right? And that's not as comfortable for me because it's not how I roll, right? It's just not how I roll.
Yeah.
But, you kind of just have to feel that fear and do it anyways. I know it's such a cliche thing to say. It happens all the time, but I have doubted everything. One of the great celebrations I've had recently is I've lost a lot of weight. And I've yo-yoed weight for a long time, but I've lost a lot of weight. But when I started doing it, I didn't think I could do it. And 30 pounds later, I'm like, oh, I can do it. And I still have like maybe another 20 or 30 to go, but I can do it. And I am not ashamed of my weight gain or of my weight loss. Like I am very much like open about it because I know I used food to buffer a lot of the emotions in my life, in my money life. And I talk about this a lot of times, right? Too, like all of that stuff is connected in your life, your money, your weight, your health, your life, your relationships. It's all connected because it's essentially you. It's your energy, right? That you're putting out into the world. But with all of that, I've had so many doubts. And you know what? I think every day, if you can just kind of be proud of yourself, and I think that's one of the greatest feelings you can have is when you have integrity with yourself, meaning when you are what you say you are going to do, like do what you say you're going to do. But more so, instead of from a people pleaser place where it's for everyone else, do what you say you're going to do with yourself. Like if I had kept integrity with myself since I was born or since I was, 18, I would be a billionaire / supermodel by now. And I joke about that, but I say, why? Well, it's because of this. If you always said you were going to eat what you said you were going to eat, or don't eat what you say you're not going to eat, or drinking or vices or smoking or drugs or whatever it is for you or for anyone else. And if you said you were going to like love and respect yourself the same way you wouldn't have got into maybe some relationships or different things. Or if you said you were going to study for your exam for school, like you said you were going to. See, I'm horrible at that. I'm a procrastinator to the nth degree. So where would I be right now? I'd be graduated Harvard and be done. So like there's so many things. If you do what you say you're going to do with yourself, I think you really get a step powerfully into your life by just keeping integrity with yourself above anyone else, because you're the person at the end of the day you're going to have to deal with. And all the things in your life that you want are available to you because you've kept that word with yourself. And you can put your head on the pillow every night knowing that you did it to the best of your ability. And at the end of the day, you're proud of yourself. And that feeling, I think, will derive a lot of beautiful fruit in your life, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Wow, I connect to that so much because I think it is so important. And I think that's a big piece in my life that I'm missing, because this is like a funny story, but I had this like notebook out, these stickers out, these pens out, this like how to set goals book out, all nice and set out for a week. Because I was like, I need to sit down and get some goals out. I need to really focus on that and really just, what do I want? And the book and everything sat there for a week. And I still haven't done it, but I'm going to after this, because I'm like, I need to keep that promise to myself. But I just felt like I was stuck. I was like almost, and I was like, okay, so why do I keep avoiding this? I was trying to like troubleshoot it almost. I was like, why is this why am I nervous to sit down with my notebook and put goals on paper? And I think that I was doing myself a disservice by not even just trying to sit down and start writing things that came to my head, because I was going against what I was telling myself to do, kind of thing. But I think that sometimes there's lots of fears that come with life, which I've experienced lots. The biggest ones for me have been like fear of judgment, fear of failure, and now I think I kind of have a fear of success as well, because I'm like, what if, like, there's just so many unknowns, like you've already said in this conversation, but I'm curious to hear your take on fear of success.
So I was just going to say, so you read my mind. The biggest fear, I did actually a live on this the other night, but I'm like, the biggest fear by far is dreaming the unthinkable dreams, dreaming the dreams that are so scary, because it's almost a fear that if you got everything you ever dreamt of, that, life would be over. Like, what more would there be to go after?
Yeah.
And in all the areas, what happened? What would your life be like if you had, the dream body, or I mean, if that's a thing for you, but like the dream body, the dream bank account, the dream, relationship, the dream business, like all the dreams in whatever area it is, like dream health. What would that be for you? And it's so scary to step out of our comfort zone where we know what's going on, we know what's comfortable for us, and to step into the unknown is the scariest thing. So one of my beautiful friends, she gave me the song from Frozen 2. She actually used it as kind of a like a mantra over me, which was so beautiful. But she gave to me the song off Frozen 2 called Into the Unknown. I'm sure you've seen it, exactly.
Frozen. So yes, I know.
So Into the Unknown, and like, she's like, you are going into the unknown, and go with confidence. And then I'm like thinking of Frozen 2, and I'm like, oh yeah, I see that movie, I love it. I'm like, so I have this song now, I play it in my car. Yes, I play Frozen by myself. My daughters are too cool for that even, right? Like, are you kidding me? My daughters are too cool for that. But yeah, it's like stepping into the unknown. What does that have for you? It's so scary. It's so scary to step into the unknown. It's very scary. It's less scary, I think, to be honest, when you're 18. Looking back now, it's so much more scarier now when I'm 40 and I have 2 children and I have like the more responsibility you get in your life. And for me, that's a lot of bills, a lot of real estate, a lot of employees that I provide for. Like, I pay them, they use that money for their families. So employees, and then my children, my family. I feel I have a lot of responsibility, and to my like 700 plus clients, right? Like, I have a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. I feel that. And so it's scarier for me now than when I was 18, footloose and fancy free, as an example, to now step into more for myself, because now I'm risking, or I think the fear thinks that I'm risking shaking that foundation for not just me now, for my kids, my employees, my business, my health, my wealth. Like, every time I make a decision, it's literally shaking the foundation of the whole life I've built now. So I think it's harder for women 40, 50, 60. I walk with women who are going through divorce, who are going through death. I mean, I do a lot of estate work with clients. So when people pass away, and this week, prime example, the client I had this week, she was 80, her husband just passed away. She's now in the unknown. And no matter what age you're at, it's a very hard thing to step into the unknown, and fear will keep us playing small in life. But the more we can go into the unknown, the more we can create this beautiful life and be that inspiration to other people. And I think that is just a beautiful thing. And if you can say and know at the end of the day, you're going to be okay. If everything goes away, you're going to be okay, and you can recreate it or start again, or, just pray people are going to still be by you. And you know what? Humanity wants to support you. The universe wants to support you. People are at your back, and there are always going to be people who will reach out and be in love and be able to stand in love around you. And so knowing that you've got this beautiful support system of love from the universe is very helpful. But I say, just like, go for it. Just do it. Step into the unknown, sing the song with me. I'm not going to sing it, but I'm like, go into the unknown, go with confidence. And I think the universe might surprise and delight you sometimes. So.
Well, I'm definitely going to take all the advice you've given today, because that's just so amazing. What is one of the biggest challenges you faced, and how did you overcome it?
To be honest, the biggest challenge I ever faced was, I shouldn't say the biggest. There's a few big ones that pop into my mind. There, like one of them around money for specifics, in about October 2019. So it was only a few years ago. I had a horrible financial setback in my business. Horrible. It wasn't like ending my business or anything, but it took me almost a year to crawl back out of it. And it was something out of my control, and something that like literally almost wiped me out financially, just because it was something, I don't honestly, to be honest. Oh yeah, it was about something happened with a client account, and it wasn't my fault at all, but it was just such a financial devastation. But I took, like, essentially I got left holding the bag, so to speak. But it all worked out fine, but it still just cost me money that like was a lot at the time. And it took me a year to climb out of that. And that year was very difficult. I think when you're in really hard times, like when you can't pay your bills, and I felt like that. And I didn't want to turn, I think out of pride, I didn't want to turn to anyone. I have a lot of people in my life who would support me and help me out, even financially. And I didn't turn to anyone. I kind of just kept it between me and my office staff here. And yeah, like it was kind of just day by day. And I think part of it was just having the faith that this is going to be for something good. And I don't know what it was. Well, I'll tell you what it was now looking back. It's that financial stress and ruin. Because keep in mind, I've had a very good financial life up until a couple of years ago, until that happened. So I don't think I could relate to people who'd been going through bankruptcy, who'd been going through not having a job, who have no money, who have never made money. So I think the blessing and all that, and I mean, I bounced back. I literally bounced back from that very easily. But I think part of it was keeping the faith, but also the blessing in it was that I relate to people in their financial journeys, no matter where they're at. And I think that is a huge thing, to be able to relate to people. I think what it offered me was more compassion. And I think probably with your story too, being where you are with learning, like I know you were mentioning that earlier, right? Like it gives you more compassion to people when you're with them in your particular field or with whatever it is you're sharing or doing. So I think it's the compassion. It just expands your heart. You have more empathy. You understand that not everything is going to go your way. And you also understand the role luck plays in things, because luck, you don't know, like so much is out of your control. And that's the other thing too. You got to let go of being that control freak. That's like holding on tight, like I was saying, with your closed fist. Yeah. You got to let the control go. Like things are just going to happen as they happen. Right. So
yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. So to kind of do the flip of that, what was one of the happiest times of your life and why?
Oh, well, I got asked to do a full page article for Investment Executive. It's a Canadian publication across Canada for all the top financial. It's essentially like every bank, every financial institution in Canada gets this paper. And they did a full page cover story on me, which is amazing because they only do one cover story once a month. So there's like 12 cover stories a year. And there's probably 200,000, if not 500,000 financial, well, there's probably 500,000 financial people in Canada who do financial stuff in the industry. And they chose me, and I was truly honored. And I think that was a very exciting point. That publication came out April 2020. Funny enough, about the bad financial time I was having in like October, and I actually come to think of it as October 2018. I got the year wrong. But when I was, the funniest thing ever, when I got the call saying they wanted to do a full page article on me, it was December 2019. So before COVID. And I was so sick, like sick with the flu. I think it might've been COVID, but it was like before COVID actually started. But I just come back from New York City again, another trip. And I was so ill in bed, and all I could do that day, I looked at my email on my phone while I was lying there for 2 seconds, and I saw, we want you to be this in this art, like we want to do a whole cover story on you. And I was so sick. All I could do was hit reply. I'm like, yes, I'm in. Please send me the details on Monday. Like that's how sick I was. I didn't even like, but I replied back and I was like, oh my gosh, my dreams of being known and seen in my industry for what I'm putting out in the world with the Wealth Collective and Wealth Spa, like my programs and the work I'm doing with women for financial education was being recognized. And I think that made 20 years of work worth it. That was awesome. So yeah.
That's so good. I just love that because it sounds like it was such a big moment for you. And even though you were sick, you're just like, I'm still ready to go.
I was so sick. It was horrible. I was like, and I wanted to celebrate, but I was literally like dying in bed. So I'm like, no, I can't even move.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to open up the floor. If there's anything else you want to discuss, anything at all, a topic that you want to share with everyone or anything before I have 4 final questions.
Okay, no, go with your final questions because I'm good. I know I could talk all night with you.
Bring something up. All right. So the first one is, what is the best advice you've received and from who?
Okay, well, I have 3 pieces of advice.
Okay.
I've gathered them over the years and I've written a blog on this. So I have this all written down in finer detail, but basically I remember it like this: the lighthouse, the trapeze, and the first kiss. Okay. So the lighthouse is this: be the lighthouse in your life. Lighthouses don't go to shipwrecks. The ships come to the lighthouse, meaning be the light, be connected to your source, shine bright, and you will draw in the ships and they will find you and they will get their inspiration and their light and all the things they need by you being the lighthouse. But that means you stand there and be firm. So that's the first one, is lighthouse. The second one is the trapeze. And the trapeze is like the trapeze artist where they're swinging from swing to swing, at the circus. But there's this moment when you have to kind of let go of one swing and grab onto the other swing. When they're doing their twirls in the air and they have to grab onto the other swing. There's that moment when you are suspended in the air and there's nothing there to really catch you. But that's the moment you've basically committed 100% to what it is you want. And that's where you have to get, is the place where it's suspended in the air and you don't know what's really going to happen. Because that's when I think the universe can really be like, okay, here's the other swing. Let's catch the other swing. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise you're going back to the other swing, right? You want to be able to move on with flow and grace and effortlessly to the next thing. But there has to be that moment when you're suspended in the air, basically, and no one's there to catch you except for the universe. Like God's there to catch you, right? So that is the trapeze, but that's what commitment takes. You have to release and there's going to be moments where it feels so incredibly scary. You don't even know which way is up. You don't know which way is down. You're spinning. Feel through that and just know that there's going to be another swing there to grab onto that's going to be awesome. And you're going to land it. You're going to crush it. You're going to land the twirly thing and land on the next swing, and everyone's going to clap for you, right? Yeah. So that's that. And the first kiss, what was the first kiss again? I've done this talk so many times, but I'm like, the first kiss, I think it's like allowing for some magic to happen. It's like that anticipation, having those butterflies in your stomach. I think there's so much about a first kiss that is that you can relate to as into your whole life, right? If you can find that place where you have that passion and that love and that drive and get those butterflies in your stomach for your life, for your purpose, I think it's a great, it's something just to remember that, it all starts there. It all starts kind of with the butterflies. It starts with finding that purpose and passion and calling into that, tuning into that purpose and passion, and enjoying the moment, enjoy it and revel in it. It's just so a beautiful moment, right? So that's my 3 pieces of life advice. Those are the 3 pieces of advice I'd give to my daughters too, if they're ever
It's so beautiful because that wrapped everything up very well. In what we've talked about, it gave a kind of a really nice little dip into just wrapping it up really nicely. And I think that it's so cool how you use those images and that, I mean, at least I could picture it in my head and analogies. So I love that so much. My next question is, what's the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, the worst advice. You know what? I get a lot of bad advice all the time. I think the worst advice you're going to get is the advice that you don't take, the advice that you take and you don't ponder and decide for yourself if it's good advice or not, or bad advice or not. So in other words, just listening to what everyone tells you in life, do this, do that, don't do this, do that, like without you being the ultimate filter of that advice, that's the worst advice. If you're not putting up your filter and saying, you know what, that doesn't work for me. Like, I see what you're saying. I see where you're coming from, but that actually doesn't apply to me in my life at this season of my life or at this time, right? Being the ultimate, like scrutinize all the advice you're getting and just running through your own personal filter. So people who don't do that, that's like the worst advice. Like, yeah, just make sure you're always running advice, all the advice through your own personal, like tuning in and seeing if that is true for you or if that is just true for them in their journey, in their season right now in life. Because a lot of people will have lots of bitterness about things, right? Mm. So
yeah, that's a great answer to that. I like that. And then one of the last questions is, what are you grateful for?
Oh my gosh. I am grateful for, I have this one best friend, and her and I have done gratitude journaling for 531 days in a row. And every morning we write out a laundry list of things we're grateful for. And I'm truly grateful for my health. I'm truly grateful for my daughters. I'm grateful for having a sound mind and being able to be a being on this earth and having enough confidence and courage to be able to actually share my message and not be ashamed of who I am and my past and my journey. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I love that. That's just so amazing. I love this whole conversation so much. The last thing is where can someone get a hold of you, connect with you, and learn more about what you do?
Okay. Well, my company is Elements Financial Group, elementsgroup.com, but Elements is spelled ELLEMENTS group.com. That is my main website. Everything is on there. I've got my book, Strut, How to Kick Financial Assets. It's available on Amazon, Indigo, like anywhere you buy books. And Selena, send me your address and message that to me, and I will send you out a copy or drop you off one in Cochrane. Absolutely. And
I'll buy one right after this. So that's perfect. Thank you.
No, I'll totally drop. I got copies too. If you're in Cochrane, by the way, I'm happy to drop them off at your house. And then I also have a podcast, Money Makeover Podcast. And basically, like, find me on Instagram. I'm at Lisa _Elle, ELLE. And I'm on there a lot and just like to be silly and fun and just kind of have fun and share what's on my heart every day. So there you go.
Yeah, her Instagram is so good. I followed it immediately after I heard her in a podcast interview. And then I just got so much value, and like your videos, they're just so good. I just love your page. So I definitely recommend giving it a follow. You won't regret it at all. It's going to be so amazing. So thank you so much for joining me today and opening up and telling us about your struggles, some of your really difficult times in life, but also all the good tips and inspiration that you've given me and others today. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Selena, for having me. You are a light, and I'm blessed by this conversation tonight. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us in sharing all of your stories and your struggles and your hard times, but also sharing your good times. I have enjoyed this so much. So thank you so much for joining, and thank you to all of you listeners. If you resonated with anything, please drop down below. Don't forget to give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so then every single time I post a video, you will get notified. And that is it for me. So I hope you all have a great day. Bye.